We're up, we're up, we're up, we're up.
Karmelo, do you have anything that you'd like to say? Anything that you'd like to say to the victims, to the family of the victims? Why were you armed, sweetheart? Karmelo, why were you armed at school? Explain your self-defense. How is this self-defense?
Excuse me.
Karmelo, you'd like to say?
I had the crowd next to me.
I think it's a choice between intelligence and the lack of intelligence. Any intelligent human being is going to protect himself when he's attacked. Any intelligent human being will protect himself from his attacker. And if black people in this country are going to be encouraged not to protect themselves when they are being attacked by a very vicious organization, then I think that our respect as human beings will never be forthcoming. Well, people may differ in ways and means and methods, but they don't differ in the objective. The objective of every black American is complete recognition and respect as human beings. This is our objective. And you're never going to get people using the same means and the same method toward reaching any objective.
What's good, family? So as we know, our young brother Karmelo Anthony has been released on bond after we raised over $400,000 for his defense fund. This was a grassroots effort to organize around this case to make sure this young brother does not get railroaded in these kangaroo courts like we have seen far too many times before. If you're unfamiliar, please refer to my American Justice Scottsboro Boys video for an example of how these courts do not operate from a basis of innocent until proven guilty when it comes to foundational black American men. Now, what do we know so far about this case, family? Let's go over the details. Karmelo Anthony is 17 years old and comes from a well-to-do two-parent family from Frisco, Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan. He is a student athlete as well as a straight-A student. Being an intelligent young FBA man in Texas, Karmelo protected himself with a pocket knife. I'm sure the ancestor Malcolm X is very proud of Karmelo. Now, in the state of Texas, a pocket knife with a blade less than 5.5 inches long is considered a tool and not a weapon. Now, I personally have not heard about the length of the blade that was used in this stabbing, but I'm going to assume that the blade Karmelo used was less than 5.5 inches long due to the fact that a stipulation to the law in Texas states that a minor is not legally allowed to carry a knife over 5.5 inches long on school grounds or at school-sponsored events. Now, as we know, the legacy corporate media would have announced such a finding by now. Also, if the knife was not of the legal length, I doubt that the court and the judge would have lowered Karmelo's bail. On the date of the incident, Karmelo was at a track meet in which he participated in. At one point, it started to rain, so Karmelo sat down underneath a tent, which happened to be used by the opposing team. While under the tent, Karmelo was approached by two white boys who were not members of the track team. They told him to get up and move or something to that effect. Now, there has been a lot of speculation regarding what words were exchanged, so I won't get into hypotheticals here. What we do know is that Karmelo warned the boys not to touch him or that they would be sorry. Allegedly, one of the white boys physically grabbed him to forcefully remove him from under the tent. In response, Karmelo reached into his backpack, grabbed the knife, and stabbed the man one time in the chest before fleeing the scene. When he was picked up by the police, Karmelo admitted to the crime. He sympathetically asked if the victim was okay and mentioned that he acted in self-defense. The Texas Stand Your Ground law is a component of the state's self-defense laws, primarily outlined in Texas Penal Code Section 9.32, Deadly Force in Defense of Person, and the related sections. It essentially removes the duty to retreat before using deadly force in self-defense under certain circumstances. Unlike some jurisdictions that require a person to try and safely retreat before using deadly force, Texas law states that if you are justified in using deadly force, you have no duty to retreat. This applies if you have a right to be present at the location where the force is used, and if you did not provoke the person against whom the force was used, and also if you were not engaged in criminal activity at the time the force was used. Now, based off what we know about this case so far, Karmelo had a right to be present at the location where the force was used because he was participating in the track meet, and there is no law that states that it is illegal to sit under the tent of the opposing team. We also know that he did not provoke the white victim, and he clearly was not engaged in any form of criminal activity. We also know that Karmelo stabbed the victim one time before retreating, which proves that he did not intend to delete the victim and only wanted to neutralize the threat. Let's continue to the next clip.
Malcolm, the Civil Rights Bill is with us now. What will it mean?
Well, I'm not very excited at all over the Civil Rights Bill, primarily because it's a law, and the Supreme Court desegregation decision was also a law that was handed down by the highest court in the land 10 years ago, and they haven't been able to implement it even here in New York City or any other city in the north, much less try and implement it in the south. And if they can't implement this single law that was handed down by the highest court in the land, I'm very doubtful that they'll be able to enforce any of the laws that are now on the books in this recently passed civil rights legislation.
You don't think it's even a step then?
No, I don't think it's any step. The Constitution of the United States automatically is supposed to be sufficient to protect anybody who's born here who's a citizen. And if the Constitution includes all of those who are born here, I don't see why additional legislation is needed when it comes to the rights of the Negro. If the Polish people and the Hungarians and the Russians and others who come here as refugees don't need civil rights legislation in order to be recognized as citizens, why, it's a farce to make Negroes think that civil rights legislation is needed to get us recognition as citizens.
Well, what would you suggest be done then to let a Negro go wherever he wants to in the South and get all the other benefits that the bill provides him?
You can't do anything by legislation. It takes education. The white man in this country needs to be re-educated so that his behavior pattern toward non-whites will change, and the black man in this country also needs to be re-educated so our behavior pattern and attitude toward ourselves will change. And once a little educating is done on both sides, you'll probably find that that in itself will do more to bring about the spirit of brotherhood than all of the legislation that's designed to force the two together. You can't legislate brotherhood. That brotherhood comes about through understanding, and understanding is created through education.
Now, Malcolm, on one side you're talking about brotherhood and education, and on the other side you're talking about guerrilla movements in the South. Where do you stand?
Both of them are educational. We demand our right to have access to equality of opportunity to anything that this country stands for, as long as we're born here and come within the confines of the Constitution that governs this country. Now, in line with that, we feel that we have the right to defend ourselves whenever we take measures to participate as citizens and unlawful elements like the Ku Klux Klan get in our way. We think the two positions are consistent. In fact, one complements the other.
Malcolm, tell me why you want to send guerrillas to Mississippi.
Well, Professor Mark DeWolf Howell of the Harvard Law School, speaking for 29 other law professors, pointed out that the United States government could intervene by law in the state of Mississippi by sending troops. And since the Attorney General and others in the federal government have pointed out that they don't intend to send federal troops in themselves to protect the lives and the property of the Negroes who are being brutalized down there, it's our intention to try and organize the black people or the American Negroes in this country into self-defense units in that area, in areas where the government is unwilling or unable to defend our people. We will defend our people ourselves.
Just what exactly would these units do? Eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth situation?
Well, as long as it is an intelligently organized effort that is being made, the discipline involved will keep our people acting intelligently and discriminately. But if something isn't done in this country to organize Negroes who are fed up with this nonviolent, turn the other cheek approach in a sensible direction to bring about the halting of this brutality that we're constantly the victims of, then Negroes are going to react in a disorganized way, in an unintelligent way, and an indiscriminate way when it comes to retaliation. So we actually think that we're doing more to uphold the law and protecting the lives and property of our people in an organized way than to sit around and let a disorganized effort develop.
What would you do in a specific case, say, of the 3 missing boys right now?
Well, one of the things I would do if I wanted to find them, I would look in the police station in Mississippi. And when you think in terms of the Ku Klux Klan as being the ones who are responsible for them being missing, then in the state of Mississippi, most of the policemen belong to the Klan. The two organizations are interwoven with each other. So we would look in some of the police stations or start questioning the police. There's no need to question the people out there in the street. The police know more about where these persons are, whether they're dead or alive, than anyone else in Mississippi.
When you say you'd question the police, do you really think you'd get them to talk to you?
No. So it means that we've reached the point where talking is a waste of time.
What would you do?
It has become necessary for the American Negro, of which there are 22 million, to go on record to let the world know that since the American government in Washington, D.C. has proven its unwillingness or its inability to protect us in the state of Mississippi, the black man in this country is obligated to take it upon himself to organize and put forth the efforts that are necessary to give our people the protection that has not been forthcoming from the government. Well, the alternative is that the federal government, which is supposed to protect the rights of Negroes the same as it protects the rights of whites, must take the responsibility of recognizing the fact that the state of Mississippi is part of the United States and is under the jurisdiction of the United States government, and therefore the United States government is responsible for all of the violence, the bloodshed, and brutality that takes place in Mississippi. And in the past, as long as our people have been the victim of brutality, the government has dragged its feet. So we have to create a situation where we can retaliate and create a situation that will force the United States government to occupy the state of Mississippi and do for us in protecting us as she has done for others while trying to protect others.
In the previous clip, Malcolm X discusses the importance of organized self-defense in response to the terrorism foundational black Americans were facing in Mississippi at that time. For more context about what has been going on in Mississippi, please check out my previous video, Slavery in Mississippi from 1968 to the present. Now, I think it's important that we organize as foundational black Americans to protect ourselves from the white supremacists, their race soldiers, as well as the criminal classes that terrorize our neighborhoods. I encourage all eligible foundational black Americans to exercise our Second Amendment rights and get trained in all forms of self-defense. Now, we organize to raise funds for our young brother Karmelo because we have seen how a lack of financing can cause unfavorable outcomes for FBA men in courtrooms across this country. Let's stay organized throughout this trial and make it a habit to show and prove our unity on the national stage to produce justice for our brothers and sisters of our lineage. Until next time, family, peace. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.